Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone joining us from around the world. My name is Vedanshi Vala, and I am the co-founder and executive director of Bolt Safety Society, as well as a current Master of Public Health student at Mount Sinai in New York City. Bolt is a Canadian tech startup meets nonprofit building more safe and equitable communities. Our work to address sexual violence, workshops, a Safe Hubs network spanning 63 locations across 20 cities, a digital resource database, and film production has impacted 43,000 plus people, correction, over 40,300 individuals across several countries. I am delighted to welcome you to the second day of the Global Symposium on Technology Facilitated Gender Based Violence, co hosted by the United Nations Population Fund, or UNFPA, Global Affairs Canada, and the Association for Progressive Communications. Before we begin, a quick reminder that we have simultaneous interpretation available in Spanish, French, and Arabic. To access this, please click the globe icon at the bottom of your screen and select your preferred language. We are coming together at a moment when the urgency of this work has never been clearer, and neither has the momentum behind it. Yesterday was a testament to that. Over the course of a powerful opening, keynote, and 5 sessions, over 20 speakers took us on a journey from the deeply personal to the systemic. Opening remarks from our co-hosts at UNFPA, Global Affairs Canada, and APC underscored the necessity of sustained, collective, and cross-sectoral action, reminding us that addressing TFGBV requires not only political will, but also the practical commitment of every stakeholder in this room. Laura Bates opened the day with a powerful keynote, underscoring how misogyny is being coded into the very foundations of the technologies that will define our future, particularly artificial intelligence. From non-consensual AI-generated image-based abuse to AI chatbots designed as customizable girlfriends that cannot say no, to the biases embedded in the datasets that train the AI systems increasingly shaping our access to justice, employment, and healthcare. Laura showed us how every corner of our digital world is being shaped by, and too often, designed for, the reinforcement of gender inequality. In session 1, Rebecca and Sue Hui showed us through a single photograph just how much data about our lives can be extracted, triangulated, and weaponized. From metadata to facial recognition to financial tracking, they made visible the invisible pathways through which a simple image can become a tool for surveillance, harassment, and abuse, reminding us that data rights are women's rights. Session 2 brought us face to face with the reality of survivor journeys through the justice system. A survivor's testimony laid bare the double violation of gender-based violence compounded by institutional betrayal when the very systems meant to protect instead expose, shame, and re-traumatize. Our speakers called for consent to be treated as a continuous right from the hospital room to the courtroom, and for accountability that extends not only to individual perpetrators, but to the platforms and state actors that enable harm. In session 3, feminist technologists from Yuki and Tattle showed us what safety by design looks like in practice, not as a buzzword, but as a daily discipline, from local data storage and anonymous access to participatory risk mapping and multilingual abuse detection. Safety, as they reminded us, is not a feature you add. It is a condition you design for from the start. Session 4 was a powerful reminder that TFGBV cannot be addressed in isolation. It is fueled by structural violence, oppression, and the humanitarian crises that shape the lives of the most affected communities. From internet shutdowns to surveillance to the weaponization of women's digital presence in conflict, speakers showed us how TFGBV deepens when other rights are already under attack. And session 5 brought it all together with a clear message. We are not powerless. From the World Bank's global benchmarking of legal frameworks to Ecolab's model of youth-led advocacy, that refuses to sanitize lived experience for the comfort of policymakers, to Ofcom's practical regulatory guidance that pushes platforms beyond mere compliance. The levers for building systems of true accountability are within our reach. Today promises to be just as powerful. We have another outstanding lineup of speakers from across sectors and regions, bringing expertise, lived experience, and bold ideas to this conversation. Today's sessions will take us from strengthening inclusive frontline response to shaping a new global resource for practitioners to hearing directly from young people about the harms they navigate online, to confronting the spread of the manosphere, and finally, to exploring how data and evidence can be turned into real leverage for policy and platform change. Before we begin, I want to take a moment on two very important points. First, please note that some content during this symposium may be triggering or involve disclosures of TFGBV and other forms of violence. Please take any measures needed to manage your well-being, including turning down the volume or stepping away at any time and returning as and when you feel ready. Second, I want to underscore that this event is intended to be a space where lived experiences are treated with dignity and respect. Many of the issues we are discussing unfold in contexts of armed conflict, genocide, occupation, displacement, and systemic violence. We recognize that for many participants, these realities are very personal. We, therefore, ask all participants to engage in good faith and in accordance with our community guidelines and code of conduct, which can be found in the event lobby. With that, I am delighted to introduce the moderator for our first session of the day, Abigail Erikson, Chief of the UN Trust Fund to End Violence Against Women and Girls, who leads its strategic vision and impact through advocacy, knowledge sharing, and long-term flexible funding to civil society and women's rights organizations. Abigail also serves as the acting head of the UN Women Bonn Office. Abigail, floor is all yours.
Thank you so much, and good morning, good afternoon, and I hope not too many good evenings to all of you. My name is Abigail, or Abby Erikson, and of course, I'm the Chief of the UN Trust Fund to End Violence Against Women and Girls. So welcome to Session 6, No Survivor Left Behind, Strengthening Inclusive Survivor-Centered Frontline Response. In this session, we're going to focus on what inclusive frontline survivor-centered support actually looks like in practice. And we're really going to look and focus on what that looks like for survivors with disabilities, as well as survivors from the LGBTQI plus communities. At the UN Trust Fund, I must say that we really see both the urgency of the challenge and really the incredible innovation that's already emerging to address it. We've got over 150 frontline women's rights and civil society grantee partners in communities all over the world who, like many of you on the call today, and like we'll hear from our speakers, are developing powerful solutions every day, and oftentimes with extremely limited resources, but yet with so much commitment and so much expertise. I must say, we also see the scale of the need reflected in demand for support and demand for funding. I wanted to highlight before we jump into the moderated discussion that in the UN Trust Fund 2025 Global Call for Proposals, we received more than 300 applications addressing digital violence against women and girls, which amounted to, let me see here, yes, $250 million in funding. That was an 81% increase in demand for funding explicitly to address TFGBV compared to our last Global Call for Proposals in 2023. And so in just a couple of minutes, I'll introduce an outstanding panel of speakers who are going to reflect with us this morning on what's working, where response systems are still failing, and what it really is going to take to ensure that no survivor is left behind. But before we begin, we wanted to launch a quick poll, and I believe that my colleagues at UNFPA are going to help with this. Agita, are you there? Yes, here we go. So we'll just give everybody a moment to respond. And the poll is focused on which barriers most undermine inclusive TFGBV response in your work. Then you should see their lack of specialized training for service providers, platforms that don't respond to escalations, services that are not designed for historically oppressed and discriminated survivors, legal policy frameworks that exclude or criminalize marginalized groups, resource constraints, I just highlighted that, and then social stigma and discrimination. So I think that will continue to move, and I believe at some point we'll be able to see the results, but I don't want to spend too much time waiting for that. So what I do know is I don't think we're going to be able to discuss every single barrier that we've listed here and that is in the poll today, although a number of them will be touched on. The session today is really to focus on three that are particularly important for strengthening frontline response. So specialized training for service providers, services designed to respond to women and girls facing very particular intersectional barriers, and response pathways that function effectively. I've just seen the results here. So lack of specialized training has come up as the top, platforms that don't respond to escalations, and survivors that are not, or services that are not designed. So I think our panelists are going to be very much aligned to the results of the polls. So let me now move on and briefly introduce our speakers. We have Agita Pasaribu, who's a lawyer and an AI ethics advocate who founded the Bullyid app, which provides confidential support for victims of online harassment and TFGBV in Indonesia. Her advocacy contributed to Indonesia's 2022 sexual violence law and to UNESCO's global recommendations on the ethics of AI. We have Carl Jansch, who is a digital security specialist and feminist lesbian activist from Brazil. Carl researches feminist digital forensics in cases of TFGBV through incident handling, workshops, and educational resources, and serves as a digital protection facilitator for the Digital Defenders Partnership. We have Karen Soldatic, who is the Canada Excellence Research Chair in Health, Equity, and Community Wellbeing, and a leading international scholar on disability and global inequality. Her work focuses on disability-inclusive research methods and large national and international research collaborations, including work on digitally inclusive research engagement and design using AI-powered technology. I hope we've got Eunice here, who is Karen's colleague. I will just introduce her in the chance she is. So Karen is meant to present together with Eunice Tunggal, who's a researcher with the CERC of Health, Equity, and Community Wellbeing, and whose work examines the gender disability experience of TFGBV, health equity, and digital spaces through co-designed research methods. So we are going to start off with Karen, and of course with Eunice, if she is also here. Karen and Eunice, we would like to invite you to share your perspective on what is really needed in this moment of time to address TFGBV, technology facilitated violence against women and girls with disabilities, and what are some of the practical approaches that you are finding can strengthen the capacity of service providers responding to these complex cases? Over to you.
Great, thanks, Abigail, and thanks so much for having us here today. So I'm just going to switch to share screen, and
would you like me to do it?
Yes, that'd be great. Sorry, I'm the Luddite in the team. Fantastic. Okay, so we've put this presentation together around the topic based on the work that we've been doing with colleagues at Stellenbosch, but also our own work that we've been doing nationally in Canada working with different civil society groups and disabled women's organisations such as Dawn. So we cover off a number of areas, and I think the first thing that we really want to talk about is the fact that disabled women are disproportionately affected, that we have seen in the research and the data when it comes to gender-based violence, but particularly technology gender-based violence. And in fact, we've begun to actually call it, because of their unique experiences and the prevalence and intensification, we've actually now started to call it technology facilitated disability gender-based violence. And that's really to pick up those unique intersections around misogyny and ableism, and then how it interacts with a range of other issues that they experience that are particularly unique. Eunice, can you go to the next slide?
Yeah, sure. I apologize. I believe we put this into a video format, so it's trying to go by itself.
Okay.
Go ahead. Yes.
Sorry about that. Okay, so things that we've found internationally through 2 systematic reviews, also a national survey across South Africa, and running focus groups and so forth in Canada, is that the main themes that the main types of TFGBV really are not dissimilar to TFGBV experienced in the population, such as cyber harassment, surveillance, coercive control. Coercive control across devices was really quite unique in relation to the often women with disabilities are situated in relationships of care, and therefore carers, both informal and formal carers, have large access and are able to control most of their devices, and particularly in the economic sphere. Image-based abuse, and the unique one again for women with disabilities is the misuse of accessible technology. So technologies that are specifically designed for them, and sometimes that can also be even restricting access to the accessible technologies that they use. So there's a number of unique things that they experience. And with that actually the issues that they face is because of the historical ways in which women with disabilities and girls with disabilities are treated when they report violence. And that's that intersection of the intensification of ableism, that services themselves are generally inaccessible or not designed, poverty and gender norms, and the assumption that women with disabilities are sexless and don't have intimate relationships. And often when they report, there's a high level of institutional mistrust because of the history of not being believed. So what we have found in our research is that frontline responses are basically designed for generic survivors, and they leave disabled survivors underserved or invisible. And often where they really lack knowledge or understanding or know-how on how to deal with, and often that's also because of the lack of survivor services available that are inclusive of women with disabilities, is they don't actually recognise the unique so-called relationships of care, such as family members, social networks, and formal paid services. And so that really puts them at a level of heightened risk that services really need an integrated disability inclusive survivor response, both at the individual level for carers, but also women and girls with disabilities themselves, which we'll talk about in a minute, a set of professional resources that are readily available and on hand, and service systems. So making sure that they're inclusive and accessible. Eunice, over to you.
Thanks, Karen. And thanks for that wonderful introduction to women with disabilities and how tech-facilitated violence impacts them uniquely. I think as we kind of think about those things, what we want to really focus on is what a big part of our hope is for education on tech-facilitated disability and gender-based violence. And so ensuring that we're embedding disability inclusive content in all violence prevention and digital safety education. One of the things that we found that when we were talking to women with disabilities, particularly during our project in South Africa, is that a lot of people either do not report or do not know that they can report. And that is something that is a huge barrier to actually understanding the level of tech-facilitated violence that is happening, and also, preventing people from accessing supports and safety. And so oftentimes, as many people know, many of you may know, disability is considered as an afterthought, and accessibility is considered as an afterthought. So we add things rather than integrating it during the process. And so ensuring that in disability inclusive content is present in all violence prevention and digital safety education. But on top of that is designing that content alongside women and girls with disabilities and other disability organizations. And so again, it's a thought of incorporating people with disabilities from the start of something, right? And so developing that curriculum, developing those tools alongside people with disabilities is essential to ensuring that we are actually hitting the points that we need to hit, to ensure that we're actually adding the accessibility and adding the tools that we need to add to make sure that these tools are specific to the forms of violence that people are facing, and also providing them with sufficient resources. What also needs to be addressed is intersectional experiences in these educational resources. And so again, the generic is typically built for, is what we build for, but intersectional experiences around race, around indigeneity, migration status, gender, low socioeconomic status, all of these things are obviously things that will impact the experience of violence, and will impact the experience of seeking support, and will impact the experience of learning about how to protect against violence in the future. And so ensuring that we're incorporating this intersectionality while we're developing educational materials. And of course, finding intersectional experiences during that co-design process as well is really, really essential to ensure that we're providing the right kind of education. As much as we can say, oh, that we have educational resources, are they built for people that don't have the same experience as you? Are you addressing your reflexivity during saying, while you're saying that you have all of these resources, right? Another part of it is ensuring that all of these things are accessible, and also ensuring that we're talking about those specific disability-based risks. And so the risks of tech-facilitated violence with assistive technology, with monitoring your devices, and coercive control that is specific to disability, making sure that we're actually providing education on the fact that that is violence is a big thing. And then ensuring all of this material is available in multiple formats that are accessible, right? Again, building it in at the beginning rather than trying to add it on at the end. And then finally, integrating this understanding of tech-facilitated violence and how it affects disabled populations into into schools, into post-secondary institutions, and also into community-based, gender-based violence prevention programs. And more on kind of expanding on that last point is how are we training people? And so I saw in the poll that was a big issue, is that we want to provide training for people. And so developing disability inclusive training for frontline workers, so the people who are going to meet survivors where they are. So working with people who are working in shelters, with law enforcement, healthcare workers, crisis lines. And so ensuring that that training is available for those people, and that they are actively engaged in understanding how disability and intersectionality will impact tech-facilitated gender-based violence and how to respond to it. So we want to create practical toolkits, and something that we're working on with our projects in South Africa is to create a manual that addresses survivors, that addresses parents and caregivers of people with disabilities, and also addresses frontline workers who will be working with women with disabilities, and how to address tech-facilitated gender-based violence and respond to it, and specifically educating them around disability and those technologies and the way the technology interacts with them. Again, we also want to see cross-sector collaboration and develop those guidelines across sectors, so that we can have safe evidence collection that doesn't increase survivor risk. We want to provide clear referral pathways between disability, violence prevention, legal, and digital services. So a lot of these things is just crosstalk and collaboration in the spaces where a lot of times we are stuck in our silos, right? And we're stuck in our expertise, and we don't chat to each other, and we don't glean from other people's expertise. And that's one of the great things about this event, right? Is that we can learn from other people and develop this understanding. So again, crosstalk, collaboration, and we also just need the funding and the support for accessible information hubs. We need to support one another with professional learning communities and knowledge exchange, and all of this. Again, we need to center lived experience. So we need to center the voices of women and girls with disabilities who have experienced this, who know what's going on, who know better than us. Let's do work with people, not just for them. So I'll hand it back over to you, Karen.
Thanks, Eunice. That was great. So the other thing is, and it's really, I guess, the materiality of where do people go? Where do they report to? How do they respond? How do people respond? And that's really ensuring that the services themselves are inclusive in their design and are accessible. So one of the things that we've found in our research, particularly in South Africa, where it's poor local women with disabilities, service design in and of itself is generally not designed with them in mind, and therefore they're unable to access services. Other issues are about issues of aspects of poverty, and also a range of social policy measures that enable women with disabilities to get the supports that they need for development and support in relation to responding to TFGBV, but also being able to leave their homes to get access to services. So services, really the aspects of universal design based on the principles of co-design are really important. One of the issues is around crisis lines and reporting tools and online platforms. A lot of them actually aren't fully accessible or necessarily confidential at the point of interface. And many people don't report because of long-standing issues of trust. Also, they don't have the capacity to report necessarily because they don't have control over their devices. So developing reporting services where people can actually report, where they feel safe to report, and be able to report in ways that don't put them at further risk. The other issues are around physical services, so ensuring that people have access to shelters so they're able to leave, especially when they're in TFGBV relationships, where carers, interpreters and so forth are able to understand TFGBV and how it uniquely affects them. That's another area of importance. And the other issue too is really our research really indicates there needs to be a coordinated approach to the response. So getting disability services to work with the survivor services, to work with police and legal services, and also with e-safety departments. And increasingly governments around the world are setting up e-safety commissions, and I mean, they've been very good at identifying risks and safety issues for young people, for older people, and for women generally around coercion and control. But the aspect of disability and disabled women in particular, particularly the accessibility and inclusive design and designing those interfaces to ensure that they're delivered in ways using easy language, are really critical factors for ensuring that the service design is fully accessible and inclusive. So that's really it from us. We're taking questions at the end that I gather. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Karen and Eunice. Yes, and for everyone listening, we will have space to open it up and ask questions. But thank you so much for that really, really important presentation. I'm going to move us on quickly so that we can have enough time for each of the speakers. So we will now turn to Carl. And Carl, I would like to invite you to reflect on two questions. What type of assistance do LGBTQI survivors really require? What are you seeing when facing technology-facilitated gender-based violence, and especially in contexts where sexual orientation and gender identity is criminalized? And from your work, what lessons have emerged from Maria's lab on how to build and have inclusive digital security support for LGBTQI survivors? Over to you, Carl.
Well, thank you very much. I hope you can see my slides. I'll move on. Thank you. Well, I'm Carl. I'm from Brazil. I am representing an organization called Maria Lab, which is a feminist organization. I'm also part of the Digital Defenders Partnership, working with digital security from civil society. I'm also really, really fond of birds. You can see up here is my daughter, my parrot. So just a quick trivia. I'm going to talk from the experience of Maria Lab. So it's a Brazilian organization that works on the intersection of gender technology. And all the way from the beginning, we started in 2014. And all the way from the beginning, we started receiving a lot of requests for help from feminist groups, LGBTQ organizations, and activists. And we always tried to support them the best we could. But it wasn't until the COVID hit in 2020 that we decided that we needed to stop and reorganize the way that we were responding to these incident requests. So we organized ourselves into a digital security helpline, which is called Maria da Ajuda, which is a project from Maria Lab, where we have an organized way to respond to this sort of digital incidents. And this is the website, mariadajuda.org. And this is a free service that we provide incident response to civil society. We focus on women, girls, LGBTQ, and also civil society organizations. But we attend cases that are mostly related to digital security incidents. So most of the time we are working with social networking incidents or WhatsApp, also organizational digital security. We love to do preemptive work with organizations that are worried about their digital security. We had a lot of those in the Bolsonaro government. That was our little fascist Trump up here in Brazil. And many organizations were worried that they're going to be persecuted, especially LGBTQI plus organizations. And also other cases that are related to digital security and technology at large. And all the cases we analyze, and I think there's an interesting link between the previous talk that we also work with a group of facilitators that work in this helpline, and we always face the need to involve other specialists in the cases. So all the cases that we receive, they are very infused with some questions and concerns towards legal concerns or psycho-emotional concerns. Like most people that come to us, they are in a very fragile moment. They are very a lot of these difficult emotions, and to us it is a challenge because we have the expertise in digital security, but we do not have the expertise in these others areas, and also in a specific context of violence. So it's really interesting to hear that. We believe that we should work in a network, and this is why we, as Maria da Juda, are not alone. We are part of this bigger group that are feminist helplines around the world. Here you can find more references about this group. We have this website, feministhelplines.org, where you can find a list of all the digital helplines that identify feminist helplines. That doesn't mean that we only attend cases of feminists, but it means that our methodology and our values, they are engraved in these feminist principles. And well, how does it work? I mean, this is a chart that we did that is it's an example of how most of these feminist helplines work. It doesn't mean that all of them work the same way, but we did research with some partners, and we realized that although we are different, of course, we come from different countries, different strategies, but we have a very similar way to work with these cases. So we are the facilitators, right? And a supported person come to us with a case. It is very diverse, but I will give some examples close in the next slides. And of course, that this person has a context, has an identity, has a sexual orientation, right? And all of these must be taken by this facilitator. There is no checklist that we provide, like, oh, you need that, so do this, There is all this effort of active listening, and where our feminist methodologies come in hand to try to understand who, where, why, this person is. So we take the case and we make initial questions and also do some initial security checks, right? And some basic support. So all of these digital security helplines, we do some basic digital first aid support. Some organizations can offer psychosocial support. Some organizations can offer legal guidance, maybe other referrals. So if someone is in need of to be relocated, like I'm in immediate danger, I need to be relocated. So there are some groups that work with that. So there are a big range of basic actions that we do on these first accompaniments, depending on our specialties. But they are all basic, right? So if we're talking about digital security, this would be like giving an initial orientation on how to change passwords, on how to better secure your devices, on how to understand the links between things. So a lot of time people are very worried that there might be a virus in their computer or in their mobile phone because someone has access to their information, and then we try to explain to them that today all of these big data environment is incredibly intertwined. So it may be other possibilities, maybe it's not on the device but on certain online account. So we do this initial support, and then we come up with some follow-up strategy. Of course, here it sounds very simple and straightforward, but a single accompaniment can take days, months, sometimes even years. It really depends. We don't have a time limit. Like, we're not, okay, you can have us for 2 hours and then we're done. No, we do it as long and as comprehensible as the person needs. And of course, echoing on the what you said about resources, this is very resource consuming because a single feminist facilitator can work on 10 cases in a day, and that's it, like just a quick support, or you can work on a single case on the span of several months. So it's really, it's part of our methodology, it's part of what we believe it's necessary on giving care that people need, not a standardized care based on our income, based on numbers. But we understand that this might be difficult to create a dialogue with funders because we are not really looking at numbers. We're looking at this kind of feminist support. So this might sound simple, and it's not. It's very complex, and we are very good at it, at providing this integral support, but it's not always enough. Sometimes it is. I mean, a lot of the times, many cases, like the great majority of cases, they don't need more, like they don't require a more advanced technical knowledge from us, from the facilitators. Like a lot of time people come to us with a lot of stress, a lot of fear, and they believe that their case is super complex technically, like their hater is a super hacker, or their ex-partner is someone who has hacked all their computers, all of their network. They feel really unsafe. And then while we go asking these questions and checking their device, we might find out that it's not as technically advanced as the person thought at first. One example is that a lot of time people come with files that were stolen, sometimes revenge porn, sometimes cases related to a court case. So a lot here in Brazil, we have very difficult work around a parental law. I don't know if you heard about it, but there is a law that if you're a mother and your ex-partner sues you because you are keeping their child from him, and this has been used a lot to cause damage to this mother and their child, and not for reparation, but for vengeance. And these are very difficult cases. So a lot of time people come to us because they need help in securing certain files or securing certain videos, whatever, digital evidence. And these files have been stolen, deleted, or something like that. So, and people believe that it is really complex technically, and we ended up finding out that it's in their Google photos and that this ex-partner have their password. So it's not simple, of course, but it is not technically complex. So a lot of time we can work with this, and we can support the person enough so that they leave with a bit more of information, feeling a bit more safe, less anxious, understanding how the attack happened. So most of the time, this is okay, right? But sometimes it's more complex. Sometimes the victim have stronger beliefs that there are other technical advanced skills at hand. So a lot of people come to us and believe that someone hacked their device. A lot of people think that their phone, their computer has viruses or spywares. And here, I think it's important to add a note that we are talking about two kinds of viruses spyware. So we have the commercial spyware that most times is targeted towards women, LGBTQ, and other minorities. Sometimes is explicitly sold like that. That's in the form of stalkerware. So it's literally a software created to stalk your partner, your women, your children. So and this is a commercial virus, so it's sold, openly on the internet. And there are other kinds of super viruses, super spywares that are used by governments to spy on potential enemies, and that, of course, they claim is just to use for national security, but there are several examples in the world that's been used against activists and civil society organizations. So these are two separate threats and two separate advanced skills necessary to identify those. So we mainly work with the first ones. We have partners, organizations here in South America that work more with the second one. If someone is interested on this subject, you can check Socialtic It's a very nice Mexican organization that has worked a lot with Pegasus and other of these governmental viruses. But we focus more on the first group that is also a big threat, but is less technical complex. And here, Brazil is one of the top buyers of this technology. So a lot to focus on. But there are other less technical concerns, like someone think that their network has been hacked, their account, that someone accessed their email or social media without the concern, files that are missing. So all of these is very recurrent to us. So lots of people come with this kind of requests. And we have found out that there is a limitation in resources in the way that we can respond to this. And by we, I don't mean just Maria Lab, I mean the whole feminist helplines environment. It does require a more in-depth technical analysis to say to someone, well, your device hasn't been hacked, or we have strong beliefs that your device is safe and that probably this person knows about this some other way, right? And that's why we started to investigate digital forensics. So here's another note. When we talk about digital forensics, we can look at it from a traditional way, and the traditional forensics would be done by the police, would be done by the justice system of each country, and that would be done after a case has been legally open. So you go to the police, you send them the device, and they're going to do an analysis. Or not. I mean, that's often the case here in Brazil and other countries in South America, where these cases of gender violence, they are not taken seriously, so the police does not give them sufficient attention. And that's why civil society as a whole developed this counter forensics, you might say, this other alternative that is consensual forensics. So consensual digital forensics is when someone, an activist, a victim, someone that believes that their device have been compromised, ask for help and give us their devices, give us their data consensually. They sign, of course, a document and they are aware of every step. So they have consensus. They have, like, they are in control of their data. We explain then everything that we're doing, what we can find, what we cannot find, and what kind of information we have access to, and then giving back the control to the victim so the person can choose what they want to do, with what end. So sometimes people want to open a legal case. Sometimes people just want to feel safe again in their digital environment. And this can be used in many ways, like most for human rights violations. They can be used for audits in civil society organizations. They can be used to support activist women, LGBTIQ, and in many ways. And that's mostly our question, right? When we started researching this topic, since 2024, we've been very focused on this. We wrote research on that, and where we were asking, I mean, okay, so how can digital forensic analysis be a tool to address this case of gender-based violence? And we did this work with other feminist helplines, so it's not just our opinion on this matter, but we have a network of very close feminist helplines in Latin America that have the same issues. And that's why we created this extended chart that we are calling the feminist support chain. So this is a proposal, right? Not only a few organizations have the ability to do all that, but this is our proposal that we can at least reach another step. So let me take you through it. So we receive the case as feminist facilitators, and then we ask the same questions. We do the same support. If it's a simple case that does not require any kind of forensic capacity, so we move on to the steps that we did before. But if it does require, or if it looks like it might require some more advanced forensic analysis, we do some triage. So this step 2 here, we believe, and in our research, we came to this proposal that all feminist helplines could be trained to do it. So also this requires training, of course, but it does involve steps that are not as technically complex. So we do some quick forensics, which is some more simple analysis in the devices. We do more specific questions for the forensics. We help set up a timeline of events that might be super necessary for legal cases and also for in-depth forensic analysis. And then we come up with this diagnostic of, is there evidence of advanced legal threat, digital threats? If there is no clear evidence, then we go back to integral support. But if there is evidence, then we move on to data extraction and a detailed forensic analysis. Again, not all feminist digital helplines will have a forensic analyst in their team. But the good part is that they don't need it, because if you work in a network, there are other organizations that might do this heavy lifting, but only if there is good triage, because we cannot just send in all of the cases that we receive. I mean, we can just, okay, this person thinks their WhatsApp has been hacked. Deal with them. I mean, that would overwhelm them with cases, and we wouldn't have the necessary questions. We wouldn't have the timeline. We wouldn't have the specific goals of this analysis. So this is our proposal.
And Carl, this is amazing. I just want to say we'll need to wrap up in about 1 minute.
Yes, sure.
Okay.
Yeah, so just so you can read more, we have in our website the research that we did, and also we are creating all of these technical resources that might help these organizations, feminist helplines, get there. So thank you. Sorry that I took my time.
No problem. Thank you so much. I mean, I found that really fascinating. Thank you for sharing the experiences from Maria's labs. And also, I see a direct relationship between that immediate forensic, analysis that, really like can be there for anyone who's in that immediate response, to also immediately help have a safety response for a survivor. It's terrifying to think somebody's in your space, but as you said, a lot of it doesn't need to be escalated. And it makes me think about, the first presentation as well, which is like, what is that baseline skill up that service providers need to have, also around the digital world itself? How is that really integrated into frontline service? I'm going to go immediately over to Agita. So Agita, I think you're coming out. There you are. Hello. And don't worry, please take a full at least 10 minutes. I know we're running a little bit behind, so everyone that's listening here, I'm working with the others to gather all the questions. We will have some time and space, but please take the time here. Please share your lessons from Bullyid's work. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Abigail. Okay. All right. Can you see my screen? All right, great. Thank you. So hi, everyone. I am Agita. I am the founder and executive director at Bullyid app. We are the Indonesian first online victim support platform in the country, where we basically provide majority of the cases that come to us is within the concept of non-consensual intimate image abuse, online threats, and AI-generated sexual abuse. Victims and survivors can access online psychological support, legal support, and we have a reporting platform where we basically escalating a report related to non-consensual intimate image abuse, or NCII. And in Indonesia, we work with Meta and TikTok in the country. Now, within the platform, they also have an AI-powered relationship health check. This is the prevention aspect that we developed, and this is all available for the victims and survivors in Indonesia to access. Now, within my conversations and discussions in these presentations, it's going to be a little bit of a technical. So if there's anything that you would like me to define a bit more, please feel free to do that. Just to give you a little bit of an overview about how our app works, as a tech charity and with a survivor-centered approach that we put together into our platform, we see how important it is for survivor and victims to know who they are talking to. And so we have 96 licensed psychologists and lawyers and counselors within our platform that they can chat, they can stay anonymous, they can have 3 different methods from chatting, audio, video call. And the most important aspect is they can see the profile of psychologists, where they're going through and what sort of a legal background that they have. So we understand that this is not for every single helpline that is actually being implemented, but for the past 5 years, this is actually really, really helpful for a survivor to understand better what are the background of the person who are going to help. Now, the reporting platform that we have built a very robust reporting with a case management system where victims and survivors can actually report directly through our platform, and we can have an access directly to us if there is any evidence that we require from them, or where is exactly the link that is actually being shared, and further proof that they have. We don't require email, as we have our case management platform, which is reduce the amount of the cases that it's going to be back and forth through the victims of survivors. Now, what our relationship with Meta and TikTok in Indonesia as a trusted flagger platform in the country? With Meta, we still in an email basis. So what happened is from our platform, we still have to extract, download it, and we have to report manually. So this is one of the gap that we have. With TikTok, we have access to TikTok safety enforcement tool platform, this is what they provided us as a trusted flagger platform. Is it perfect? Not really, because the ideal concept that we hoping to have is the API integration between the platform that we have built and the safety enforcement. So imagine that you report to us, we can actually escalate it directly within our platform without downloading all the informations, and we have to upload it again on the safety enforcement. But again, in comparison with email, of course, the TikTok safety enforcement tool actually works better in comparison to that, as there is an option to report directly with the bulk options. Now, before I'm going to talk about what exactly our challenges, I wanted to give an overview as a content moderations. When we talk about escalation process, we talk about content moderations. And what many people are not completely well aware, on a social media platform, this is a standard scheme that you are looking at your screen, is that you have AI content moderators and you have human content moderators, okay? And because there is a different context, and AI is also getting better and better in terms of capturing or understanding the images. Many of the social media platform is actually reducing the amount of budget to put a human moderators. So when you are reporting, for example, for cyber harassment on Instagram or on TikTok, the chances that it is not human who receive your cases, it is actually AI, okay? So AI is great for capturing manipulations, for example, is the full nudity, explicit sexual content, gun violations, and images of drugs or anything. But what AI and majority of non-consensual intimate image abuse that we have received, it is not always full nudity, right? In a country like Indonesia, we are the biggest Muslim populations in the world. Majority of the cases that we receive is within the concept of cleavage photos, someone using the evening gown, pajamas, gym clothes, bikinis, and the swimsuit, and sometimes even Muslim women who are photographed without the hijab. And what happened is usually, as majority of the contacts that we receive as someone, the photos are originated from consensual or semi-consensual contexts. Okay, when someone met on online dating platform, they consensually share the intimate photos, but then it is being used to weaponize, to ask for blackmail and so on. So
this is majority of the cases that we receive. AI will not be able to capture all of this. And if you are looking into Instagram or any other social media platform reporting form, they always mentions without consent. Okay, so consent, it is contextual. Consent, it is not embedded in the image, in the video data. Consent, it is not understood in AI algorithm. So in the cases when it comes to non-consensual intimate image abuse, especially when it is not full nudity, especially when it is AI-generated deepfake pornography, for example, the chances is goes to the human moderators, but human moderators is probably have less than few seconds to decide. And consent is a very complex, and sometimes even for a lawyer to go through chronological context to understand, is there a consent in there? Is the context is there? Or sometimes human moderator also do not really understand the language. Sometimes they are using sarcasm. So this is hard for AI to basically understood. This is why contents that reported under the non-consensual nudity policy on Twitter, on Instagram, it is happened to be not being able to be removed simply because the AI algorithm are not being able to capture the consent itself. Now, what I wanted to explain as well, nudity, it is against the community guideline. Explicit sexual content, it is against the community guideline on across social media platform. But non-consensual intimate image abuse, it is not always full nudity and full sexual content. Now, the challenges on online platform is first, obviously, they don't understand the full context. The evolving harm of AI is getting better and better, and then it is hard to actually monitor the advancement of artificial intelligence these days. They're also overwhelmed with the volume. So remember that it doesn't mean that when you report one single content, and it doesn't mean that a vendor can't actually create another account and duplicate the same image or change the image on modified with AI and reposted it again. Okay, so there is a constant re-uploads, and many of the human moderators on social media platforms, they are actually lacking of the skills to understand on the context of technology facilitating gender-based abuse. Now, for the victim's perspective, takedown is slow. It's so hard for them to prove the evidence, especially even for us as a trusted flagger. We have to receive the whole entire chronology and context, whether or not there is a consent in that aspect. Remember that on social media platform, when someone created another platform of someone else, it is not really violating the community guideline, because there is a lot of fan social media platform. There is a lot of someone is actually creating impersonations of someone else. So it is not, it is an ambiguity context in the community guidelines. And there is a constant re-uploads. And obviously for survivor, it is compounding a trauma for them, knowing that even with one single content it's being taken down, it doesn't mean next day the other photos is going to be re-uploaded or modified using an AI. Now, as a trusted flagger, obviously we don't have a directing API. There is a lot of evidence when it comes to consent, and many of the cases that sometimes when we escalating, because it is not fully nudity, because it is just in the captions of a TikTok video that they shared the sarcasm, definitions. So the AI will not going to say that there's no violations against the guidelines, against the community guidelines. We also have to prove it, whether or not this actually a deep fake or modified by AI. and we are lacking of technical proof on this case. Majority of deepfake detections is for businesses, and it is quite expensive. And the other thing for us is also we have only worked with Meta and TikTok, but there is thousands social media platforms out there that we don't have a connection to. So it means even for us, we have to report in multiple different platforms to help the survivors. Now, within our experience, what basically we can share in here is that when it comes to child pornography, it's a very quick for the platform to take it down. When the victims are public figure, when the contents are viral, when the survivor are politicians, basically when it is going to be viral, it is very quick for them to basically react to our report. And because the nuance of non-consensual intimate image abuse, it's heavily on the consent, sometimes we have to play around within it. So there is a DMCA in the US. So basically we are using the context of copyright routes instead of non-consensual intimate image abuse. Now, the problem of the online platforms is obviously getting bigger. And we see that majority of the countries are putting the regulations for the online platforms. Recently, we've seen the UK is moving forward, requiring a tech platform to remove non-consensual intimate abuse within 48 hours. And there is a concept of report once and remove everywhere. Now, we see the bigger gaps on these cases simply because majority of the platforms, it is not directly towards a law enforcement. It is simply just to remove and escalating the takedown. The problem why majority of offender and perpetrator keep doing what they do because there is no law enforcement. They are not being enforced with punishment, with fine, which is really important as we're talking about access for justice. This access of justice is not there. And many of the helpline, there's no direct to the National Cybercrime Agency. And therefore, they're out there anonymously and keep doing what they do. Number two, the nuance of technology facilitating the abuse of use, it is cross-border jurisdiction. Survivor can be based in Indonesia, and perpetrators can be based in a different country. Now, the maturity of the country is a very different. Sometimes countries do not have NCII. Another country have the CII. Now, as a helpline platform, we are a grassroots and small platform that we don't even have that much of power to contact to different civil society organizations in the country or even the law enforcement. So the cross-border jurisdiction is making it even more difficult. The other thing, it's about the report once and remove everywhere. So the mandate requires a change in grassroots level, in a systemic change, and not just a technology improvement. And we see that many of us CSOs, and it is actually in a very much different maturity level of their technology, what they have. So this is one of the challenges that we are facing. Sometimes when we are mentioning or we are receiving an information or report, it is not even from Indonesia, but Indonesian as the offender, as the perpetrator. We receive cases from a survivor who came from, for example, Brazil, and we don't know who are in Brazil that we can contact to, for example. And so it making it complex and difficult for helpline center to basically provide a holistic support system for everyone. Now, drawing from 5 years of our experience working with survivors, working with government, working with the social media platform, this is something that we wanted to put a proposal basically because we see that there's a lacking of survivor-centered approach platform that is backed by the government, that is also combining with all the global CSO at once. And there is a direct access with the social media platform that also have the law enforcement into that. So drawing from our I'm sorry.
And Agita, we'll have to wrap up in 1 minute. I'm so sorry.
Absolutely, Abigail. So just to show you, this is a sort of kind of like a draft that we imagine how it's going to look like. Is instead of reporting separately to every platform, victim can actually report once to this trusted global portal that run by the government, by the CSO, and the portal then contact all the platform for the victim. So the platform collects exactly the information the social media platform and law enforcement need. So the actions can actually get better. The other thing that we see is lacking also the current technology that majority of the helpline, it doesn't actually require verifications. And because of there is an AI that is getting better, we believe that only real victim can actually file the reporting. It is so important. This is to block impersonators or even the offenders that are trying to abuse the system. And we believe that this is giving the social media platform the confidence so they can actually act fastly instead of have to verify again and again. And because of AI is getting so much better in terms of manipulations, image and videos, the ideal platform is automatically can detect the AI generated or edited abuse to give the clear proof. And once the victim image is hashing, this is also related to what Carl mentions. It's actually automatically blocked from everywhere using the hash and C2PA. So this is the forensic aspect that the C2PA provenance data has already available on the platform. What happened after the reporting? Yep.
Yeah.
After the reporting is basically going to directly on the social media platform, and law enforcement will receive the copy and understand where the evidence is going to be there. So I think I'll stop there, but I'm happy to answer any questions after that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's the worst part of being a moderator to have to do that. And also to all of you listening, you will say, well, and we also missed the entire Q&A. However, there is good news because the conversation can and will continue in session 6 in the chat room, including 1 or 2 questions that came up. I want to just quickly thank our speakers for such powerful insights and experiences. I think there was a lot of really critical issues raised, but also such incredible solutions and analysis that's also there. I do, as the chief of the UN Trust Fund to End Violence Against Women and Girls, and knowing the demand that we had, and also what some of you also alluded to, is and for any of the donors or any potential funders who might be joining this call, I want to underscore how critical it is to secure serious long-term investment in feminist, women's rights, youth, digital rights organizations that are right now on the front lines, documenting harms, doing this work to support survivors, and really developing incredible prevention and safety solutions that work across contexts. We're going into CSW next week. Financing is also about justice. It's about supporting the work that is urgently needed. We know the data already on violence and now TFGBV. Just thank you very much to UNFPA, to APC, and the Government of Canada, our fabulous speakers, and really to all of you who are doing such incredible work in a very challenging time and showing up every day for survivors and all of us to make this world a better place. Thank you for all that you do. I'm going to pass it back over to Vedanshi, and I wish everyone a wonderful rest of the day. Thank you so much.